goes the dynamite. 313 jobs added in February, blowing past expectations of a mere 200,000
You mean
jobs.
313,000.
313,000 jobs. Yeah.
That's amazing. What's the unemployment rate?
It stays at 4.1%.
Boom goes the dynamite.
How about it? How about it? Noted cynic. Scott, the cow guy, Shellady, contributor to Fox Business. Scott, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
And are you smiling?
Contain your exuberance.
This is, we had the market wobble of the last one of these reports we had for the last month. We had, if you remember, some decent inflation figures sneak through in average hourly earnings, and it didn't really show up today. It was actually a little bit less than expected, so that kind of put the market at ease a little bit. But then we've blown the top off these numbers, and a lot of these numbers are almost double what the Fed was expecting. So this probably comes in to help support where we are now with this economy. And the one thing that really goes unnoticed, and a lot of folks don't take a look at it, is this labor force participation rate. That can be the single most powerful number out there, and it's been kind of flatlining for a while, and flatlining at not a great level, but it finally started to tick up. And what that means is we're actually pulling people back into the workforce. There may be some slack still out there, and that can make the biggest impact right away on how well the economy does. And it's good to see that number finally move. That's a relatively little known number, but it has actually a lot more power than a lot of the other ones.
A 5-month high, the labor participation rate.
That's good.
Yep. So that's very good, and that's a strong one.
Well, what about the average hourly wage? Did that go up, go down, or stay the same?
It's at 2.6%. That's down from last month's 2.9, revised to 2.8. I mean, these are all numbers that kind of get lost in the woods. But I would say that they're still hanging in there. And I think with the non-farm payroll number that we got today of 313,000 versus 205,000 expected. And by the way, they revised last month's up from 200,000 to 239,000. So there was 39,000 found more from the last report. So that's all real strong, and that will go in to help support that, hey, maybe these employers are having to start to raise wages to kind of compete for people to work for them.
So you're starting to get tired of winning, Scott?
No, but you know what?
Old?
I guess the guy is easy not to like, but you know what? There's things that are coming in to support a lot of the things he's done so far, and all over the radio last night and this morning about meeting Kim Jong-un and what he's done with other things in America. It's just he's easy not to like, but it's hard not to like him. I mean, these things are really proof in the pudding.
Well, within 2 weeks, President Trump is going to move to put tariffs in place on steel and aluminum. And how is that going to affect the market with the talk of a possible trade war?
The market was a little bit petulant over that. It acted like it wanted to go down on it, and it kind of did for a little bit, and it really didn't last. I think, and this is just me, he's bringing people to the table to talk about some unfair practices, right? I think he understands that sometimes, or not sometimes, but tariffs are a downward trending thing. They're not really good, okay? And a lot of times it's not fair for us because we pay a lot. I mean, 10%, there's a 10% tariff on the cars we sell into Europe. So there are things out there that are just not fair. I think he's just trying to get people to come to the table to talk about what's not fair, and he's doing so with these tariffs right now. And I'm not sure they're going to last that long, and I do know that he understands that generally nobody wins that way, but we need to get people to come to the table and talk about what's been not fair for a while.
Well, and the fact that he exempts Canada and Mexico and provides kind of an out for countries who do want to come to the table is an indication of what you're saying. So that's a hopeful note. I don't like the saber rattling in the direction of tax increases, which is what tariffs are, impositions on the consumer. But if it certainly would blunt the negative impact if what you say he's doing is all that he's actually doing.
And I think that's it. I mean, how else do you get people to come to the table? So I think this is a great way to do it. I mean, I don't want to say that the guy's a genius yet, but I mean, a lot of these things have been able to work. And the saber rattling with North Korea seems to have brought some people to the table, at least. Maybe nothing comes of it, but I mean, maybe the guy is just got an idea or he's doing something that nobody else has done before. I mean, look, he's done so many things that everybody said you can't be done. I have to give him a little bit of leeway on this and see what he's going to do with it, because I don't like tariffs. I agree with you. That's a tax in the long run. But if he can get these guys around the table to say, hey, we understand, maybe there's something here.
Well, also just too, this is an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of these industries that are much discussed, but perhaps not so similarly understood. Veronica DeRuggi, writing in National Review about this. Let's just get a handle on where the steel industry is. It's not vanishing before these tariffs. 70% of steel bought for use in the U.S. is produced here. The steel industry earned more than $2.8 billion last year, up from $714 million in 2016. So a fourfold increase. That's pretty good. 8,000 jobs in the industry were added between January 17 and January 18. That's pretty good, too, before the tariffs. So, is this an industry that needs to be protected? Does any industry need to be protected? Is that helpful to that industry? And the answer, I would argue, is no.
I agree with you, but I also think that industry might do better if there wasn't a lot of tariffs on the things that we sell out of this country, with the steel market as well. So maybe he gets these guys together and they drop some of the unfair practices and tariffs that we have to deal with selling abroad, and maybe you see that steel industry do better than it's doing better. Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I don't like them. I'm against the tariff idea, but there are some things that are definitely not fair.
Yeah, and then it's going to be passed on to the consumers. I mean, if the EU taxes bourbon, peanut butter, Harley Davidson, I mean, there's a whole list of things that they could has a retaliation tax, and then that would affect us.
I will go to war over the tax on bourbon.
Really? That'll
Yeah.
be your last day.
I was going to say
that is a bright line.
Mine was peanut butter. Peanut butter.
Everybody has their bright line.
Mine was orange juice.
Yeah, a lot of Maginot lines.
Well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure you brought this up, but I mean, the tariffs that they talk about from Europe back over to the U.S. are much more targeted, and it seems, with a broad brush, that they are targeted towards Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell.
Yes.
Cranberries, peanut butter, Harley Davidson, and then you go down and you do the bourbon in Kentucky. So it'll be interesting. Hey, he's shaking. He's a disruptor, right? And sometimes good things can come from this disruption. I don't like tariffs. I don't think they're going to last, but we'll wait and see who comes to the table to talk about it and what comes of it.
Yeah, when Angela Merkel gave up her season tickets to the Kentucky Wildcats game, that's when I knew they were targeting. So Scott, what is the other big items on the president's agenda in the offing, this year, and he made the point again yesterday at this Latino Legislative Summit, is a big infrastructure program. And that's sort of, Keynesianism, like free marketeers like us don't like, but the impact of doing some kind of multi-trillion dollar infrastructure program, and what else in addition to continuing the regulatory posture and the posture on taxes should the president be thinking about in 2018?
Well, he's got the taxes thing, behind us, kind of. I mean, what the market's really worried about is how much the government's going to have to borrow, what the government's going to be spending here. And I guess that has me a little bit worried too, but then that's got the move in the interest rates could be a little bit more volatile than a lot of the market would like to see, right? Because to put it simply, we've kind of recalibrated, right? We saw a little bit of a wobble in the market because the market was now trying to digest what might the world look like with higher interest rates, because the government's going to have to borrow so much. We've gotten taxes lowered. That could heat things up again. So everybody's worried about how fast this might happen. We're trying to recalibrate on our way to normalization, but there's something in between there, and that's the velocity of the move in interest rates. We have to worry about the velocity of that move. So if we see the world kind of come to grips with the spending, see what these tax cuts really do, because it takes, I think, about a year for tax cuts really to show us what they can do. And then if the market is trending in the right direction and digesting this higher interest rate environment, then it's going to be fine. But if you see the velocity of that interest rate move really start to heat up, that's the dangerous part, and that's why we wobbled the first time around. And I don't think that you can call that a correction anymore. It's a blip. So there still needs to be a proper correction.
All right, he is Scott Shellady, Scott the Cow Guy. You see him on Fox Business, where he's a contributor. Scott, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
All right, have a great weekend.
You too. And he joined us on our Turnkey.Pro Answer Live.
There's only one.